cause continues, and that cause is clear. And we have not only been forthright, we've also been very prescriptive in terms of what we're looking for in order to provide an architecture of advancing recovery here in the state of California and supporting working families, working poor, and supporting those that may have fallen through the cracks or not getting the support of unemployment insurance or the PUA support, and that may be more permanently harmed by this pandemic as it relates to their employability going forward. So on all fronts, we're putting together next year's budget. We have an economic framework moving forward. We signed a number of bills and advanced a number of economic and workforce development efforts in our budget. We'll continue to do more of that, and we'll continue to reinforce the imperative of getting more federal supports, including PPP for our businessmen and women, including extending unemployment and PUA insurance, including more direct workforce training supports to get people the skills that they need to get back into the economy as quickly as they possibly can.
Alex Michelson, Fox 11.
Thank you, Governor, and congratulations on the appointment today. I have a question about coronavirus. You've been pretty clear from the beginning of this crisis about the seriousness of COVID-19. The president this afternoon tweeting out that he's going to be leaving Walter Reed and saying, quote, "Feeling really good. Don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life. We've developed under the Trump administration some really good drugs and knowledge. I feel better than I did 20 years ago." Do you agree with that sort of messaging about COVID, and do you think that could be dangerous for people?
It's a political season, so it doesn't surprise me or anybody, but certainly has impacted the president's life quite directly and quite significantly. He's been in the hospital the last number of days. 200,000+ people have lost their lives, lost a loved one. I watched today Mayor Garcia of Long Beach on a national show reminding us that he lost both of his parents to COVID-19. How deadly this disease remains and continues to be. I reminded you a moment ago, and I'll do it again, 21 states are seeing an increase in the transmission rates. Other countries are experiencing what was predicted, a second wave. To minimize, to negate, to dismiss this pandemic as anything but what it is, a deadly pandemic, deadly disease that's impacting lives, destroying families, as well as our economy, I don't think advances the collective cause of bringing this country back together.
Sovereign, KCBS.
Hi, Governor. Thanks. It was only a decade ago that a lot of people would describe California as ungovernable, and now a growing number say it's unlivable. I personally know several people who have decided to move to other states. They've just had enough of worsening wildfires and rolling blackouts and smoky days when their kids can't go outside, and there are ads airing on our radio station now for a company serving people who want to leave the Bay Area. What do you say to the people who are ready to give up on California?
I've lived here half a century. I've heard this pretty much every decade. You referenced a decade ago, and in this last decade, we've been enjoying economic prosperity, the likes of which few states have enjoyed. Last 5 years, 3.8% average GDP growth, 120 consecutive months of net job creation, record surpluses, record reserves, record level of business startups, innovation, more scientists, more researchers, more Nobel laureates in this state than any other state in this nation. All of that remains. Finest system of higher education anywhere in the world. The balance sheet of this state is extraordinary. Our competitiveness is second to none. The international status that we enjoy as a brand and our capacity to compete also is best of class. And so I'm very long this state, very confident in our ability to continue to prosper well into the future. And I would encourage you and many others just to look back as an example, a proof point, a point of reference to a edition of Time magazine that was done in 1994. The entire special edition was saying California's best days are behind it. They talked about the mass exodus. They talked about wildfires in this state. They talked about other things that were rather curious as it relates to the diversity of our state at the time and some of the xenophobia and nativism that was alive and well. We recovered as a state. We worked through that as we always do. I saw today there was a happiness index put out, California remaining one of the happiest states for individuals to live in the United States of America. So we're challenged. at this time, as every state in this country challenged at this time, and states that haven't had to struggle through this pandemic and the economic consequences are beginning to struggle through this pandemic and its economic consequences. I was on the phone the other day and listening in to the governor of Colorado. They were talking about historic wildfires in their majestic state. It's not unique to California, the west coast of the United States, being impacted by these challenges, by these conditions. But as I always say, and forgive me, I'll say it yet again, it's our decisions, not conditions, that determine our fate and future. And I have confidence in our capacity to compete, to thrive, not just survive in the next number of years. And I would just encourage folks that are leaving to consider the fact that this state 6-7 months ago was dominating in so many different sectors. And those core tenets of the state remain still as alive and enlivened as they ever have been, despite some of these situational challenges that we face.
Adam Beam, AP.
Thank you, Governor. I have two questions. First of all, what's the latest on the reopening plan for Disneyland and other theme parks? And secondly, when it relates to this new equity metric, some county officials have voiced concern that this metric might hold them back from reopening businesses or schools at a time when reopening could bring an economic boost to their communities. I'm just curious why your administration is introducing this metric at this time, and are you concerned at all that it could slow economic recovery?
Well, we introduced the construct of the metric when we put out the tiered status. In fact, it was part of the original presentation, the original announcement. So it's not particularly new. But I would just say this: if you believe in growth and you don't believe in inclusion, then we're going to leave a lot of people behind. And one of the things we value as a state is inclusion. And we believe that we're all better off when we're all better off. Leaving communities behind in order to gain your testing and your case rates, I don't think is right. And so our approach is about making sure that we are doing justice to our diverse communities, and that we're not just gaming a system to paint a much more rosy picture that may be for some, but not all members of a community, particularly a specific county. Now, as it relates to your specific frame that some counties are concerned, you'll hear tomorrow, Dr. Galley will come out with the new updates on the tiered status and the movement. And our broad strokes belief looks to be in this frame, meaning the equity measure, interestingly, may help advance the cause of reopening in some states, because some counties are actually doing more in that respect, and that's being counted in to their capacity to move more expeditiously through the tier. So in fact, it may be something that advantages an economic opening, but does so in a way that brings more people to light and more inclusion to bear. And so we believe that a core value, and we believe this framework is an appropriate one.
Jeremy White, Politico.
Hey, Governor, thanks for taking my question. Going to ask the thing that I think is on everyone's minds, which is who you are picking to get to the World Series this year. Just kidding. As you noted, ballots have gone out around the state today. I know you've been busy with bill signings and budget stuff, but I'm curious to know, can we expect to see you hitting the trail for ballot initiatives you've endorsed, or for congressional candidates or the president in the coming weeks?
No, I appreciate that question. And it's one that I've had a number of people have asked me, and we just haven't made the determination. So I think you framed it, and I appreciate you framing it as you did, as it relates to what we've had to address in terms of bill signing, some of these wildfires, trying to get the stability, addressing the issues related to transmission of COVID. So campaigning politics has not been top of my mind. That said, now that the ballots have dropped, now that we are moving into this final sprint in this last month, I recognize the imperative and importance of that. We'll make some assessment and determination, but my fundamental responsibility, my top priority, is my job governing the state of California, not campaigning for others. To the extent campaigning for causes that impact and benefit the state of California, we certainly look forward to doing more and saying more in that space.
Final question, Angela Hart, Kaiser Health News.
Thank you, Governor. The president's positive COVID test has raised some questions about your own COVID testing. Just wanted to ask you, so previously on a few occasions, you've said that you did not want to get tested to preserve those tests, and then later you were tested, which turned out negative. So how many times have you been tested in total, and what were the results? Are you regularly tested? And I'm also wondering if you're planning on perhaps changing your thinking about this approach, given the president's positive test.
Yeah, no, we continue to practice what we preach in terms of mask wearing and relating to issues of highly vulnerable events in communities, be it visiting prisons, or meeting with the president himself a few weeks back. Those were appropriate places to be tested, protocols well established. So we'll continue to maintain our vigilance. We'll continue not to send mixed messages as it relates to importance and imperative of wearing masks or minimize the impact of this disease on people's health and lives that are lost. And we'll continue to update people as it relates to the health of our state and the health of this economy. And as it relates to my health, we've been tested on multiple occasions, tested negative. And if I was tested positive, I would have the responsibility and you would have the right to know, and that would be forthcoming. Well, with that, let me thank all of you for your responsiveness to this pandemic and the good work that all of you have done, 40 million of us strong, that have once again moved these transmission rates down. I should just note in closing that the 2.6% 7-day positivity rate is the lowest we have recorded in the state since April. That's very encouraging, but again, we're seeing a plateauing of the rate of decline. And we're seeing parts of the state that continue to struggle as it relates to are effective and as it relates to the transmission of this disease. And that's why it's incumbent upon all of us to be vigilant and maintain the status, all the hard work that you have advanced, and continue it so we can get through this, get to a vaccine. Take care, everybody.